Inspector Ormerod, did you direct the investigation which led to the arrest of the accused?
Yes, sir.
And would you give a court the account of your investigation?
On the evening of June the 30th, 1973, Mr. Aga Sibkat Ali came to Fulchester Central Police Station. He made a statement to the desk sergeant to the effect that he was an illegal immigrant. I subsequently interviewed him about it.
And did he say why he was making this surprising statement?
Yes, sir. He produced 2 letters.
And are these the letters in question?
Yes, sir.
Did you make further inquiries as a result of having seen these letters?
At 11:20 the following morning, I visited the address given in the 2 letters. It turned out to be a tobacconist and newsagents, which also ran an accommodation address service.
That is a letter forwarding or box number service?
Exactly, sir. I interviewed the proprietor, Mr. Charles Pearson.
Now, as a result of information you received from Mr. Pearson, did you subsequently visit the accused?
I went to his house in Ireland's Lane, Fulchester, on the afternoon of June the 30th, arriving at 3:10 p.m. He denied all knowledge of the 2 letters, but after discussion he admitted he had sent them. As a result of this and further investigations I carried out on July the 2nd, I went again to his house, cautioned him, and arrested him for his offences.
My lord, it has been agreed that the evidence of the first charge for which the accused has already stood trial is admissible.
That's so, is it, Mr. Parsons?
Yes, my lord.
So be it.
Inspector, what was the first charge against Mr. Aslam?
He was charged with aiding and abetting the illegal entry of immigrants into this country, sir, in that he arranged the unauthorised transport of 8 Pakistanis across the North Sea, contrary to the Immigration Act of 1962.
And the other charge you made against Mr. Aslam on July the 2nd is that of blackmail, for which he is on trial today.
Yes, sir.
Now, Inspector, you told us that on the 30th of June, the accused admitted to you that he had sent these letters. Now, was there any other conversation on this occasion?
After he admitted sending the letters, I cautioned him and asked him why he was making these demands. And he said it was a payment for that part of the affair from Pakistan which was still outstanding. I said, if that is so, why do not the letters say so? He did not reply. Then I asked why the letters were anonymous if you were asking for a payment of a lawful debt. He did not reply. Then I asked why the arrangement for payment was such that Mr. Ali wouldn't be able to learn the identity of the man he was to make the payment to if it was for a debt. He did not reply. Then I asked why, if it was a debt, the sum outstanding was not mentioned, and why wait for 2.5 years before asking for it. Again, he made no reply.
Thank you, Inspector.
Inspector, I am right, am I not, in saying you and the immigrant community of Fulchester have been at loggerheads for some years now?
There has been some friction.
Friction? Well, have there not been frequent complaints made against you by that community? Complaints of intimidation, harassment, and even brutality. And did things not reach such a point that in 1969 the Fulchester Immigrants Council actually wrote to the Home Office asking for an inquiry into your conduct?
And there was an inquiry at which I was fully cleared.
Yes, and you resented it.
What?
Or did you not resent it? Do you not resent these charges now? They hardly assist your career, do they?
I get on with my job. There's no time for resentment.
Yes, well, I admire your detachment. Inspector, this Immigration Council, which has caused you so much trouble, which initiated the Home Office inquiry, who is its chairman?
I don't know.
Oh, come now, I think you do.
I do not know who the chairman is.
Well, it is the defendant, Mr. Aslam. And you know that, Inspector.
I knew he used to be.
Oh, I see.
I work from the evidence, and that alone.
Very good. Well, let us examine that claim. Would you look at the photocopy of the 2 so-called blackmail letters again, please? Now, they contain a simple demand for £10 a week, do they not?
Yes.
And the defendant told you it was a debt, the unpaid part of his fare, in fact.
Yes.
Now, what steps did you take to ascertain if this was true or not? Come along, Inspector. It's a very simple question. How did you test this claim?
It was a cock and bull story.
But you say your case was based on the evidence alone. Very well. On what evidence did you conclude that Mr. Aslam's statement was not true?
The accused could not substantiate it.
But he did explain to you, did he not? But you haven't told us the explanations he gave.
I told you everything he said. I was perfectly fair and unbiased towards him.
Fair and unbiased? Did you ask to see the contract for the trip from Pakistan?
There wasn't one.
It wasn't a written one, but a verbal contract is just as valid in law as you are no doubt very well aware, Inspector. But that wasn't my question. Did you ask to see the contract?
I can't be sure.
Oh, perhaps there might be a note about it in your notebook.
I may have asked, I can't recall it.
But you did see Mr. Aslam's company papers relating to the journey, the Silver Star travel papers.
No, sir.
Why ever not?
I didn't think it was necessary.
Not necessary? Inspector, you astonish me.
There was enough evidence against the accused without going into all that.
Yes. Or could it be you were in such a rush to conclude this case that your investigation could only be called hasty and slapdash?
Quite untrue.
Yes. Well, let's go into that. You took great pains to bring charges as quickly as possible, did you not?
Naturally.
In fact, remarkably quickly. Mr. Ali entered the police station on June 30th, and you had made the arrests and had sewn the whole thing up by July 2nd. 3 days. Now, that's very quick, isn't it?
Some cases are dealt with simply, and others not so simple.
No other reasons for your undue haste?
No.
What case or cases were you employed on? with
Routine work.
No one particular case?
Not that I can remember.
Well, I think you do, Inspector. On June 30th, you were in charge of the Longhurst child murder investigation, were you not? A very serious matter where the murderer had not been caught and there was fear that he might strike again. And you actually put that aside to take on this case?
The Longhurst case had reached a stage where my officers had an immense amount of routine information to sift through. I could afford to take a few hours off while they were doing it.
Yes, or could it be another reason? That is a special reason for wishing to take on this case, no matter how inconvenient it was to you at that time. And that reason involved that thorn in your flesh, Mr. Aslam.
Absolutely not.
Well, we shall see. We shall see. Now, I would like to turn to the matter of your original identification of the defendant.
I didn't identify him, Mr. Pearson did.
Yes, the manager of the shop, quite so.
He described the man to me. Subsequently, he made a positive identification from photographs.
Which you showed him.
Yes, sir.
So you must have recognized Mr. Pearson's original description.
It gave me an idea, yes.
Yes. And was the accused known to you at that time?
Oh, yes.
Yes. You admitted many times before.
Yes.
Yes, of course. And Mr. Pearson's description clearly fitted him.
Yes, I thought it might be him.
What was the description?
Well, he said he was a man about 50, well-dressed in a well-cut suit, with a facial scar on his left forehead.
Yes. Which fitted the defendant perfectly.
Yes, sir.
The scar being the main identifying feature.
Yes, sir.
Could I see your notebook, please?
Pardon?
Your notebook, the one you've just put in your pocket. Could I see it? Thank you. Thank you. There's nothing here about a scar. It says, Packy, about 50, well-dressed. Is that the description?
There was more to it.
More to it? The description of a blackmailer for which you've set aside a desperate murder hunt, and you don't take the bother to write down the key identifying feature of the description?
But Mr. Aslam did not deny.
Well, we'll come to what Mr. Aslam said in a moment. What I am concerned about, Inspector, is your extraordinary attitude to this investigation. I mean, for instance, it says here you spent 4 days on the case on June 30th, and no less than 14 hours on each day of the 1st and 2nd of July. Admirable zeal, I would have thought, but not leaving you much time for your murder hunt. I thought you said only a few hours here and there.
You said that.
What?
I did not say that. You said it.
Yes, but you agreed.
I believe in getting on with my job.
You see, Inspector, as a result of your personal resentment against Mr. Aslam, you have neglected to give us his answers to your vital questions, have you not?
I've told you everything he said.
Oh, no, Inspector. When you asked him why the letters made no mention of the debt, why they were anonymous, why he wished to conceal his identity, why the demand for the debt had waited for so long, he replied, secrecy is necessary to protect Mr. Ali, you understand, otherwise he might be found out and deported.
No, sir, he did not reply to any of those questions.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure the jury will have its own ideas about that. No questions.
Do Do you wish to re-examine Mr. Golding?
Only briefly, my lord. Inspector, were you in the least motivated by prejudice in this investigation?
Not the slightest, sir.
Your examination was based solely on the evidence.
Yes, sir.
And were you completely cleared by the inquiry that has been referred to of any suggestion of improper conduct?
Totally, sir.
Inspector, have you the exceptional distinction of having been awarded the Queen's Police Medal and having been 5 times commended by your Chief Constable? And are you, in 10 days' time, moving to Bossenden as a Chief Inspector?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Inspector.
I'd be obliged if you would remain in court, Inspector. It may be that I shall have some questions to ask you myself.
The case of the Queen against Aslam will be resumed tomorrow in the Crown Court.